Welcome back into Come Get Some. I'm your host, Blake Williams, here with Mr. Come Get Some himself. Gregg Williams joined us from down in Texas, where the DC Defenders are, and it's a great week up here in Cleveland. You know, it's a victory week. The DC Defenders had a great defensive victory, a suffocating defensive victory that we're going to get into on the show and talk about. It was an awesome, epic comeback from behind, big comeback from behind, Game 7 win here in Cleveland for the Cavaliers this past weekend to advance in the playoffs. The Guardians are still at the top of the MLB in the standings and doing big things up here, and the Browns and the Buckeyes football teams are still undefeated in 2024. And so it's awesome. But how are you doing, G-Dub?
I'm doing great, and everything's going good. Much better mood after the win, and defensively, they played lights out.
That's awesome, man. Can't wait to get into it. Can't wait to talk about it here. We're going to be joined by a special guest, star defensive end for the DC Defenders in G-Dub down there, Malik Fisher, who's been dominating this season, including having a hat trick 2 weeks ago where he had 3 sacks in a game and was the defensive player of the week for the league, and is leading the league or up at the top of the league this year in sacks for the Defenders. We're going to have him join us, and we're going to recap and talk some Defenders football as well too with G-Dub, and then continue to talk some things around the sporting world in the Kentucky Derby and Cleveland sports. But hey, stick right with us, because when we get back, we're going to talk about the DC Defenders' dominant win this past weekend. Welcome back into Come Get Some, and this is our DC Defenders recap. This is a victory recap. There's nothing like a victory week, we know. And G-Dub, that was like an old school defensive slugfest stomping, sort of game, this past week, for you guys. Big congrats. I know you were going against the San Antonio Brahmas for the second game of the year, right? And so that was you guys opened with a week 1 loss versus them, and so this is a little vengeance that you opened at them, and this was at DC, so a little vengeance game, back. And I know that's Wade Phillips's team, and you've gone against them, a number of times, at least 4 times over the last 2 years, right? And so, like, if anything, I think of that team as like a division opponent in the NFL, right? So, like, for you guys, for you guys, that's like playing the Ravens or the Steelers or the Bengals. And so, hey, talk about that game a little bit and kind of what your plan was going into the game, and then kind of how that unfolded as the game went on to be a suffocating, 18-12 victory for a team that was like the number 1 or offense and the number 1 or number 2 offense in the league this year and last year.
Well, you know what? You brought up a great memory there with the division rivals, and then Wade and I go all the way back when he was at the Cowboys, and I was at the Redskins, now Commanders, in a division and playing against each other, and I had the big advantage in that situation. I tease him all the time about that. But I'll tell you this: it was a great 18-12 win. We only allowed 58 yards passing to a dominant passing team. But I'm going to tell you this, and you understood. I had to be a patient dude, because I only pressured, in non-short yardage situations twice in the game, because we were trying to make them run the ball, which they did. And I'm irritated about several things of that in the run game, but it was a dominant performance, 2 takeaways, really an inch from taking that 1 takeaway interception for a touchdown, but he stepped on the line by maybe a half an inch. And I've got to go over how to run now with some of those yahoos, on understanding that when you touch the line, Nomad, is that you got to make sure you can't touch the line, you're out of bounds. But we had 6 tackle for losses. We ended up 2 sacks, but had 4 more sacks that barely got away from us. We dominated the line of scrimmage. It was a good knockback game that way. And I thought our secondary played tremendous on how they made the ball go where we needed it to go. And again, the coverage goes back to you, Blake Williams, that what you convinced me to do back when I was with the Rams on that kick coverage idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really, really, really good. It made me think about you a bunch.
No doubt. I mean, in the UFL, we love, and like you were mic'd up in the game, right? So we can hear so much, and there's so much behind the scenes that you can see. And it was funny. It was like you were blowing the minds of the the announcers, right? Who know you, some of which have played in the league, right? And so even played against you, and they know kind of who you are, and they just kept talking about like Dr. Heat, and then they would hear like the 6th or 7th or 8th call in a row, where you would just be like automatic front, kick directional, automatic front, kick directional, like it was like a not even a high school game, like a little league game. And so it was, I don't want to inflate your ego too much. Like, like bomb may not be able to fit your head on the split screen if I say too many good things, but it was a master class in patience over pressure. That's a run and shoot offense that you have gone against many times before, and you've pressured a ton of times. You've had a lot of success versus them. You've had a lot of success versus them. You're 3-1 against them, and you've chuck and ducked them and blitzed them a ton in previous games. What led to the decision in this game to be so relatively vanilla and be really 4-man rush in coverage, a lot of the same coverage in the 2 high shells, and maybe rolling the coverage a little bit, and then picking and choosing your times when to man them up, but still not pressuring, still only 4-man rushing and rush gaming when you were in those man-to-man situations. What led to that game plan? And I guess that would be the first question I'd ask. What led to that game plan adjustment this time versus the 3 previous times you've played them over the two years?
Two things. First off was no explosive plays. We were going to keep the ball in front of us, make him check the ball down. But we did do a bogey that you and I both know a bunch about, is that we shelled it.
Mm-hmm.
And what he thought when we were in a shell.
And explain to the viewers like what that means. When you say shell, and they would hear you say that, they'd hear you say like shell, automatic front, kick strong, shell, automatic front, 53 buzz, or yada yada, whatever. And so what's shell mean?
Shell is 2 deep with 2 high safeties, but the corners are playing soft also. So you got to try to make a decision. Are they playing cover 2 deep, or cover 4 across? But what we were doing is we weren't doing that either. And it was causing a reset. It was causing a read to change from what the quarterback thought. Okay. And then I will tell you this, we had a very good rush plan, and our rush from last year to this year has drastically improved. And we said sick 'em, and we turned those guys loose, and we were keeping the throws anywhere from 2.5 or less. And as you know, I've got that clock in my head. When it becomes longer than 2.5, here comes the pressures. But that wasn't. We kept on doing that with our shell bogey and causing confusion. And plus, they had probably worked all week long on pressure, and they weren't getting that, and they didn't know what to do.
No doubt. So talk a little bit about this then, like the execution of and we've been there. I've been there as a defensive coordinator, calling tons of games, over my 10 years as a DC, same thing as you, like over 30 plus years. And so sticking to the game plan and calling a sequence of series of plays, right? And not getting stuck on okay, when they convert on 3rd and 3, when you guys don't hold the force properly and allow a 20-yard run or a 31-yard run, like that one time that hit. But knowing that no explosive plays, no point-producing plays, always let us play another play in the red zone, right? The ball travels faster and further through the air. And I'm assuming you thought this game, if you did that and stuck to that, was going to come down to to that defensive battle, right? Maybe they were going to play good defense as well too. You guys have a big time, who I would say, honestly, no disrespect to anybody, Malik included, but the MVP of your team this year is McCrane. I mean, he's just lights out as a place kicker.
Job.
But so how do you stick to that Or what's that like not getting so pissed off or stuck in that one play and say, I got to change things up, because we messed that one play up right there and allowed a 10-yard run or a 15-yard run, or they're rushing for 170 yards on us, but hey, they're only throwing the ball 58 yards and they're not getting any bombs over Baghdad, free plays in the end zone, and we're talking them into running the ball and shortening the game on defense. What's that sequence of decisions like, even when the bad plays happen in that?
First thing, effort and toughness. When that is still flying around and they're over communicating out there on the field, then I have enough patience that when we came to the sideline, and something that a lot of people don't know is, and only you would know this, is that we were doing different things with our stunt package.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be changing stunts over there to make sure they understood on how we were changing different aspects of the run game. But the biggest thing in the world was nothing over the top. We'll get them down the red zone and we'll make them kick field goals and not let them have touchdowns.
Well, it was a master class in that, man. It was awesome and great to see, and can't wait to talk about some of the prep here on the next game. And so stick right with us, because when we get back, we're going to get a preview of this next week's game. Welcome back in to Come Get Some, and this is our DC Defenders Week 7 preview. As we already talked about, Week 6 was such a big game, and I don't know if you saw this, G-Dub, or you heard of this or whatnot, but just, it's statistics, right? It's like, it is what it is, but just the difference between coming out of that last game, 2-4 versus 3-3 for you guys, was a 41% swing on having over a 60%, 66% chance of making the playoffs to down to a 25% chance of making the playoffs had you all been 2-4 coming out of that game. And so I know it's huge, and you guys have a big one this week against the Michigan Panthers, and it's your third straight home game. And so I know that's been awesome, probably playing in front of that raucous Beer Snake DC crowd. And so talk to us a little bit about the Michigan Panthers and what you guys have to do for keys to victory to beat this team.
Well, you brought up the thing about the percentage chance in the playoffs, is that, so me, is that, hey, I started day one of practice last week. We're in the playoffs now.
Mm-hmm.
We got to win. We have to win out. Our win outs are just longer than everybody else's now.
Mm-hmm.
Get ready to roll. And our guys have adapted to that very well. This is a well-run team. Mike Nolan, he and I go way back, when he's coached in the National Football League, and the head coach of the 49ers, and all those years going against him there too. And his dad was a dominant figure in the NFL and just an unbelievable head coach when he was in the NFL. But they're very well run. They've got a lot of wide receivers. And, Marcus Sims, number 9 for them, is a big time wide receiver. We've got to watch what he's going on. And they've got a new quarterback that's very mobile. Danny Etling, number 8, you'll see him is we're going to have an answer that when we get him to all of a sudden panic, he can run the ball. So we've got to have a net around the quarterback on the scrambles. They've given up a lot of sacks. And so that's going to be a good competition to see, okay, on how we attack and how our guys take the one-on-ones, the two-on-ones, and how we're rushing and getting after them and playing the coverage different, the different disguise things that we're doing. It's going to be a big-time game. And then Wes Hills, number 31, the running back, he's had a very, very, very good first half of the season. So it's a total offense. We've got to make sure that we're doing a very good thing, similar to the last week.
What in one of the biggest parts of their offense that you didn't mention there, and so I want to know how does this change defensive planning in a game like this? But Baker, their big leg kicker, right? The awesome story that we've heard this whole year about a guy that had not played since high school and all of a sudden is playing pro football, has kicked at least, that I know of, has made at least 4 field goals from over 60 yards in only 6 games this season, maybe 5, but I know for sure he's kicked and made 4 from over 60. And it's like, hey, when you have a team like this that can be point producing, it's like and you guys as well too with your kicker, like the first of the logo, almost in midfield, and you're kicking field goals. How does that change things for you and your defensive play calling?
So you know how I've got the field divided up from, low red zone, high red zone, going down there to the sack zone, shot zone, all this kind of stuff. So our sack zone now up near midfield is going to be a lot further out than normal because we've got to keep him out of that 60-yard area where the ball is going to be spotted. He ended the game. He had one last week, another 60-yarders last week. So it does change your third down philosophy. It changes your field goal philosophy. It changes your points on the board philosophy. There's a lot of that going in there because he is a big time kicker. He needs a shot in the NFL. He's got that kind of a leg.
And for the viewers, just closing up right here, but explaining some things right here. When Gito was talking about the sack zone, right? And so it's this area of the field that can change from game to game, but it's like, okay, where are they basically in long field goal range? Like knowing who their kicker is, knowing what their MO is. And so a sack or a negative yardage play at this area of the field is potentially, it's a 3-point swing. It's the difference between them attempting a field goal or having to punt. And hey, if they get a first down right here, I mean, they're still in field goal range. Like you still have the whole red zone to play. And so you understand that and you leverage that situation here to get even attempt to score points off the board on how big a negative yardage play can be there. But that's awesome.
And that Bill Parcells is the one who taught me that whole situation.
No doubt.
Pass it on
and
down
same
to
thing
you.
with Sean Payton and that whole thing. But hey, good luck this weekend. We can't wait to watch you guys dominate up there in DC, and stick right with us because when we get back, we're going to have Around the Sports World kind of shenanigans in segment. Welcome back into Come Get Some, and this is our Around the Sports World kind of round circle topic discussions, and we're starting off with the Kentucky Derby and Mystic Dan in the big time win. And G-Dub, did you get a chance to see any of the Derby after your game on Sunday?
I saw the replays and I saw a lot of things online, and it was just fantastic. I've been to the Derby. I've done those nice things out there too. Would have loved to have been at that one, but that was a phenomenal photo finish.
It was awesome. And and this was my first time participating in it, but over at Big Play Dave's house, he has this epic, and I know you've been over there so many times for events and to play simulator golf and the whole thing, but he has this epic, this was the 7th annual Kentucky Derby party, and I'm telling you, GW, you would have loved it. I mean, everybody was dressed up in like the Derby flair.
You guys sent me pictures.
Yeah,
I'm irritated.
in videos.
I'm irritated that I wasn't there.
Yeah, we're irritated you weren't there emceeing. Like Dave and some other people were emceeing. It's like we need G-Dub here to MC right now. But it was awesome. Tons of people, tons of betting, different types of betting on different horses and whatnot. Like we had people with some really advanced, people with all of the studies and whatnot laid out there on the bar, laying down stuff. And it was funny because for the second straight year, though, the lady that kind of goes around and puts all one of the betting things that we do there is putting all the horses in a hat, and you basically go around and you pay your money and then you just draw a horse blind. And she takes the big play Dave takes the second to last one every year. And she takes the last one every year by default, right? And it's all blind. And for the last 2 years, she has won.
Oh, my God.
And so there's 20 slips of paper or whatever in here. And in the last one, like, what are the odds on that? And then we were all joking, what are the odds on that? And I was like, what are the odds? Like, damn, Dave, like you had a 50-50 shot for 2 straight years, better than everybody else, and you've picked the wrong head or tails, for 2 straight years. What are the odds of that? But it was an epic time. What's your favorite Kentucky Derby memory out of like some of them that you went to back in your head coaching and coordinator days?
The big gala part of it, around all the different people that really are, or in my world, non-athletic people, but there's, high money people. But I love the costumes and what people wore, coming in there. I love, how the ladies, wore the old big bonnets and the big thing and dresses and all that kind of stuff. And the old thing is really cool, old time nature. And then, I'll tell you this, when you see those, all those horses and how much, all those people work and how hard they work just to get warmed up to get ready to race. I had a lot of great memories watching how much it took to have one race.
No doubt. And I don't, you probably didn't even know this, but Angry Ken, right? Ken Miles, his horse just narrowly missed being in the finals, but so he ran on the undercard earlier in the day and his horse won.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so it was,
didn't know that.
It was big time. Like we had Angry Ken's horse like on a little bet, and then we just so happened to have Mystic Dan on a bet as well too. We took a bottle of Bully Hill champagne from Bully Hill Vineyards, and where I worked 20 years ago. I don't think I produced this bottle of champagne. I think it's probably a little bit newer than the champagne I produced, when I worked there 20 years ago, but we popped it open in celebration of our 18 to 1 win on a $20 bet. So our $360 pay on a $20 bet on Mystic Dan. But it was an awesome epic one. And speaking of Kentucky Derby, interesting segue. We know how big it is with the NFL crowd, specifically the OG New England crowd, right? Like you always saw Tom Brady there, you always saw Edelman there and Gronk there, and even Belichick there.
I saw them there at all the parties all the time, together. Yes.
So you didn't get a chance to see the Kentucky Derby live because you were playing on Sunday, traveling back. And I know you're not a big Netflix guy. You're not a big Netflix and chill guy. But are you?
No.
And so have you seen any of the clips or anything of the Tom Brady roast?
Yes, I have. I've seen a bunch of them, and it really, really pisses me off that he didn't invite me to be there. Because I'd have found somehow, some way to make sure I was there to help close that show. And it really gets on my nerves. I didn't get an invitation.
That's probably why he was like, because he's just going to compete to be just over the top. What was your favorite joke that you heard?
Oh, I loved it. I thought the presentation that Edelman made was just off the charts. I thought that was outstanding. So I'm going to go with him. And I used to roast him all the time too when he couldn't play.
I thought Belichick was good as well too. Did you see?
I did too. I should say that I thought Belichick, and then people don't give him enough praise that he is a jokester. What everybody sees, on the media stuff when he's getting ready to coach a game, he's not telling anybody anything. But behind the scenes, he's roasted me that way. I've roasted him that way. He is a funny dude.
No doubt. Would you see he kind of started in on Gronk with, his whole thing was always the New England mantra is do your job, right?
Yep.
And he said, and did you see where he said, Gronk, I've been watching you on NFL Fox on Sundays or whatever. Like, please don't do your job.
Yeah,
and they all started dying laughing. He's like, I know I always say, do your job. Don't do your job. Like, please do somebody else's job. But you mentioned as well too, and I think there's been a lot of there's been some heat. There's been some blowback back there. Like people, Aaron Hernandez's ex-wife, fiance, talking about it. Giselle, kind of talking about she didn't like, some of the jokes and that type of stuff out there, and didn't think the platform, all these things and gripes are out there. But to me, and you would get this, that was a public, that was just on Netflix live version of an NFL locker room. That's
just like an NFL locker room. And guess what? Yes. And especially if you're a head coach or somebody in the league on the coaching part of it, that's what the media does to us every day. Okay? I mean, and in the locker room, that's how you laugh and have a great camaraderie, because that's an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And I, as a coach, walk in there, they roast my ass.
No
Okay,
doubt,
every
like
day worse.
the
Okay, worse than they do a player.
yeah, some of the things that had people gasping, or some people were like, "Oh, like that's literally those are some of the that's said on the sidelines during practice,
Yes.
in the locker room, those sort of things. That the night, in the ice cream hall, like snack hall, the night
Oh,
before the game, like we've had all those talks on about Cortland Finnegan and James
yeah.
Laurinaitis and Chris Long and Michael Brockers this year. I mean, like that literally just to me, it was funny. It was like take me back. I mean, it did. It sounded like just like a normal locker room banter and whatnot, but it was so it was just everybody else getting a taste for that. I was like, I guess like that's just a roast on steroids. But
No
but
doubt.
hey,
It brought back great memories to me.
but appreciate you, joining us, and talking about that a little bit. And so stick right with us because when we get back, we're going to be joined by Malik Fisher, DN of the DC Defenders. Welcome back into Come Get Some. I'm your host, Blake Williams, here with Mr. Come Get Some himself, Gregg Williams, joined virtually via the Dallas, Arlington area, right, where the DC Defenders and where he's been joining all week long, or all season long, I should say. And we're also joined by a special guest this week, star defensive end for the DC Defenders, Malik Fisher. Malik, my man, thank you for joining us, brother.
How's it going? Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. How was practice today?
Oh, practice was it was a rest day for me today. We got a good day off, just to get settled. For this last part of the season, it's good we have all Sunday games, so we kind of have like a strict schedule where it comes to 7 days from each game, and this is one of the rest days, so we really get to just reset and get after it tomorrow.
Dang, man, Go ahead.
I had to put up with the coaches all day, so tomorrow I'll be ripping the ass of the players. So that they've had a day away from me today, so it's been good.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm 1 day off. That's why that was supposed to be the lead-in right there, as I was gonna play over under on how much crazy shit and how many F-bombs were had today. So Malik, this used to be the I don't know if you guys play this or not, but this used to be the game, right? And it was like a big time betting game, right? As you know, like players were not supposed to bet, right? Not supposed to bet on anything. So this was something not on betting apps, not on sports, not on anything like that they could bet on and have fun with. But the like it used to be big going around on like Saturday meetings, if you were going to have like Saturday meetings at the facility before the Saturday night meetings at the hotel with G-Dub, and all the defensive players would be going around and they'd be setting the numbers like bookies on the over and unders on F-bombs, how many F-bombs like G-Dub. Oh, I mean, I'm talking about like in the Jonathan Vilmas and like the Scott Shanleys of the world, and like in Joe Schobert's like super cerebral, like I know you are. Like they would be trying to like they'd think like they had it down to math. Like they'd be trying to go and get with the QC, whoever was making G-Dub's like PowerPoint slide for that night, and try to see if there was like how many slides there were. Right, because they'd be like, I
think the F-bombs game may be a little easier. I think if you really know them, you got to do the scalpel. How many times did you say you're pulling out the scalpel?
pulling out the scalpel. The scalpel. Give the fans out there who have seen G-Dub twice on Hard Knocks. Give them a little behind the curtains. I know we get a lot of behind the curtains down in the UFL, but what's with the scalpel?
No, it's just play good and you don't have to worry about it. That's it.
There you go. Well, speaking of playing good, my man, you've been heating it up this year, right? I know you guys are battling 500, but 2 weeks ago, big congrats, UFL Defensive Player of the Week. I know always, right? There's no moral victories. I know all you would have wished the game would have went differently, but a 3-sack day, was that your first hat trick day? Had you ever had at high school or at college, a 3-sack day?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I actually mentioned that to my mom. I've had 2-sack games, but I never had 3, and I mentioned that to my mom, and it was a big deal to have just for myself, but then also, like you said, it was also kind of bittersweet when we saw how the game kind of hard to just soak that in. But looking back at it, it was a good game that I did feel good about.
Yeah, but here's this. That was only partial stats, Blake. He had 3 sacks. He had 2 where he shot the gap, and 2 run stop tackle for losses, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery on one of those sacks. He led in stats all the way across the board. And that day was one of the days I patted him on the back and actually smiled at him.
Hey, there you go. You know what that means, right? Like, I know what that means. Hey, growing up as a kid, like constantly looking for that after the games as well too, right? You know, and I had games where I scored 5 touchdowns. I had one game where I scored 48 in a football game in the first half, and he still got salty stuff to Pat. He still had salty stuff to say to me after the game. I was like, good
because you didn't hydrate, you cramped up and couldn't finish.
We won 48-33. And I scored all 48. We didn't have the kicker that day. I was the holder. We didn't have the kicker that day, and so we had to go for 2-point conversions on every single one of my 6 touchdowns, and so that's how we got 48. It was an interesting day. But like, so when you're in the zone, I think we've all been in that zone before. You know, G-Dub wouldn't ever tell you this, but G-Dub still holds the basketball single game scoring record back in his old high school. It took him until his senior year of high school, by the way, to beat my mom. My mom held the men's and women's single game basketball scoring record that she set as a junior, and he had to break it as a senior. But like, we've all been there in different spots, like that game, that hat trick game. Like, what does that feel like when you're just in the zone? And for the fans out there that didn't see it, like, the 3 sacks were all in like hugely critical, like gotta have it situations. Like they were 4-point plays where like they were down in the red zone, taking the ball away, maybe 7-point, potential swing plays, 3rd down when they were in field goal range and all of a sudden get knocked out and have to punt. I mean, they were critical, like gotta have it time sacks. What does that feel like when you're in that zone like that day?
So a big part of being in that time, I see like a zone or like a flow. It's just letting things come to you. And honestly, a big part of how like I am with myself and how I operate, I just like to let myself flow into whatever rhythm it is. And a big part of like how I attack my pregame routine and pre-practice. I know Coach Gregg usually sees me like on the turf right before I'm in a locker room on practice. I always have the same routine. I roll out, I stretch, I activate, and then I do our team warm up. So a part of that day was just really just letting myself get into that zone early on before the game, kind of the music that I was listening to. And then at that point, I just allow, once I hit the field, myself to trust my training, trust the plays, trust the coach, and then let the plays come to me. And when I think the biggest part of being in the zone like that is actually being able to take advantage of all the plays that come to you. And I just had a fire in me, and it did feel well.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, and that's what the UFL is all about, right? And we love, that we finally got a league like this, that is allowing those things to happen and those stories to be seen and told, and that bridge, to where so many people are trying to get to or get back to. And so, kind of on that vein, like, Tell the viewers a little bit about your backstory, like how you got from New York City and Xavier to Villanova and then to the UFL, kind of what that journey was like.
So I started playing when I was 7 with the team, the Brooklyn Titans, and then as I grew up, the head coach and the owner of my little league team, his son had went to Xavier. He suggested it. It was a very good academic school, and they had good athletics as well. Not a perennial powerhouse, just pumping out Division I players, but it had a good education, and it was just a good place for foundation. So I went to Xavier after his son, and at Xavier, I really excelled. I played football, basketball, and rugby. And a part of that, like my sophomore year, I was varsity, all 3, and I was just playing every sport. But football was always the first sport that I played and I loved. And as I was there, one of my defensive coordinator, he had GA'd at Villanova a couple years prior to that. His name is Kevin Kelly. He was there in the early 2000s. And the connection for me, and when I started really performing on the field, they were one of the first teams to talk to me, and they were the first team to offer me. And after them offering me, I just got a couple of other FCS offers. Like I said, like Xavier wasn't a perennial powerhouse where we just pumping talent. So great to have some type of outreach to a Division I program. And when Villanova was the first team to offer me, I kind of took that opportunity, especially because when I committed, it was in the middle of the Villanova basketball prime. They had just won 2016 national championship. And then my freshman year, they won that second national championship with all the guys that's on the Knicks now, the New York Knicks. And then when I was coming in, we also, right as I came in, there was a class that had just left with Austin Calitro, with Tano,
who I coached. I was actually you mentioned that I was just talking to, probably about an hour and a half ago, I was talking to Austin Calitro. I was Austin's at the beginning of his career, very beginning of his career. I was his first linebacker coach here in the NFL here at the Browns, and he went from us at the Browns to the Seahawks. But yeah, we used to have some epic stories of, like, he was a young Njoku. David Njoku, the all-star tight end here, was a rookie first-round pick. And so, like, Calitro on the practice squad used to just piss him off so much at practice, would just lock him down, and then Njoku would be mad, and then he'd just, like, stand over him, and he'd give him the little, like, handcuffs thing after everything. Oh, it just would, like, about start brawls and practices. And we were joking about that here about 90 minutes ago. It's funny that you mentioned that.
Yeah, so and I mean, that's a part of what I came into. The program that I came into was what the program that they left, and it was just a great time to be joining Villanova, and it's a great place. So coming out of there, that's why I had the number 92. When Tano left, he had 92, and I was like, well, this guy, he just got drafted second round. I'm gonna try to take his number, and I'm gonna just go, and I'm gonna go with it. And it was a great time to be at Villanova, and I learned so much just on the field, off the field, and I performed well. I think I had 23 or 4 sacks in my career out of a 4-eye. That was a big part of me in college. I played the 4-eye. I was halfway a D tackle for my whole time in college, still able to perform and produce in a way that gave me enough opportunities. And when I finished college, I had shoulder injuries, like coming in and out as I played, and I played through it through college. So when I finished, about a couple days after my last game, that's when I had one operation, and that was a big part of my post-collegiate career. Before being a professional athlete, I kind of had to fix my injuries. So then I did that, and I went to rookie minicamp with the Saints. I got a minicamp invite, so I didn't have my pro day. I didn't perform at a pro day, but I was still able to be thankful enough to get an opportunity with the Saints, and I performed really well. And that opportunity at the Saints, the film from there, was a big reason that Coach Watkins, Coach Gregg, and Vaughn was able to see me, and they had some type of relative comparison to be able to see me on a professional level in rookie minicamp. And that's where I got the opportunity to come into the XFL prior to last season. So I had signed a letter of intent, and some of the administration from the league, Russ Giglio, had reached out to me and offered me that letter of intent. And that's when I was just showing up last January, and I was basically like a rookie. I was fresh. Not a lot of people necessarily knew about me because I was from an FCS level, and a big part of last year was me just developing myself on the edge, and just as a pro, I had to make sure I was on the bus every week by special teams. Coach Gregg knows, like, every week it was, will he be up, will he not? But in practice, I was performing as if it was a game, but I was doing that so that I could get a spot to play on special teams. I mean, and that was really one of my introductions into what it is to be a pro. You have to make sure that you make the bus. And a part of that was the fire and the pressure that allowed me to get better last season, was knowing that if I didn't get better, then I would probably be left out. You know what I mean? And not even in a sad way. That's just the way it was.
Right.
So every week I actually started to see real big growths in my game throughout the middle of last season. And then as the season continued to go on, I kind of gained hold of that more. And that's where my confidence got built through that middle part of last season. And I started to trust everything. And then going into the off season, when I was finally healthy, this was one of my big off seasons where I was able to train, hone in on a lot of skills and things that I was able to learn from last year. And coming into this season, I just wanted to trust it all. And I just let it go. I don't try to overthink anything, and I just trust the training and all of the learning that I've got from the day one.
Well, that's awesome.
He has made tremendous improvement. He goes from a 4-eye now with his hand down as an end to stand up to special teams, and he is by far way above where he started last year, this year, right now, and he's playing on instincts and anticipation. He's flat cutting it loose, and he deserves another shot back up there in the next league. And then you can tell him too that you and I both got the ring on from the Saints.
Yep.
Okay. And in fact, I had a conversation with one of the scouts at the Saints yesterday about him and another guy here on our team, a tight end.
Well, hey, that's so awesome. It's an awesome story, and like that's again one more reason that I'm so excited personally, and I know you guys are as well too. About the UFL and giving more time and more platforms to guys that clearly belong to be able to shine and show. Like, not everybody's path is the same path, right? And so just give one more way for the cream to rise to the top. But I'd be remiss, if we let you go, Malik, without talking a little bit about this, because talking about, and I know you're a man of many talents, and an entrepreneur, a business, founder, a CEO as well too. And so why don't you, tell our, give the kind of the 60-second commercial a little bit, but tell our viewers about what you've built at Power Apply and kind of what that vision is.
So at Power Apply, it's a company that I co-founded with my brother. He's an engineer. He's taught himself how to code, and he's built everything that comes with the platform. I run a lot of the business part where it comes to my connections at Villanova and Xavier. And what we do, we just released our newest product, Interview IQ, is where our main focus is going. And it's really just a place to help HR and people in the hiring process, and help the resumes be able to be seen faster.
Mm-hmm.
It builds reports, it allows for notes, and it parses through information quickly with AI that allows you to get a quick glimpse of who someone is in a way that'll boost their resume and put it at the forefront of HR, and allow that process to just move a little easier. And a big part of that story is just my brother. He didn't go to college, but he was looking for ways to make himself be able to be seen and get jobs faster. And a part of that, he built a lot of technologies and a lot of different software to ensure and aid in that. And sometimes I just tell myself, I just make it sound good. You know what I mean? I like to talk, and I can talk to a lot of people. I make it sound good, but it's a lot that comes with it. And we've been making a lot of gains. We have an advisor that we picked up who was the former vice president of global sales at the New York Stock Exchange. So we're making a lot of gains and connections. And now as we release our beta, it's Interview with a UEINTERVUE IQ.com. And it's a beta launch. So there's some free subscriptions up there. And it's just, we're trying to push it out, get the name out there, and then develop some information and data to push forward with.
Well, now it makes me feel very good because you have, something to fall back on. That's great. So now when I get pissed and tell you got to go sell beer in the stands, I'm going to get pissed, and now you can go sell brand or whatever else that thing's on.
Yeah. You see how Malik, it falls flat when you always yell at them about they better have their degree based on the way they practice today, or they're going to be going and selling beer. And and Malik's saying, hey, I may be hiring you, so watch out. Hey, Malik, I appreciate you for joining us, my man. Good luck this week. Continue to kill it both on and off the field. We'll all be watching you this weekend, my man, and we're pulling for you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and come get some.
Come get some, baby.
And I appreciate you doing
on that note, let's break this segment, G-Dub, like we break every show and like we break every meeting with Malik. Let's do a come get some on 3 right here.
All right, wait a minute. No, I got to clarify to Malik. It's just come get some. It's not the last word.
Oh, yeah.
Not the last part. All right.
All right, here we go. Ready, break.
Come get some. Appreciate you.